Bear with me one. Right. Good morning. So, for me, for my leadership experience task, I was given the opportunity or asked to look at our marking policy. The vision for our school really was to ensure the marking and feedback to the pupils was purposeful and consistent throughout the school. That was the vision that we wanted really. So through that, we had some aims that in speaking to the rest of the leadership team and the executive head who was in place at the time, we wanted to produce a clear policy for the marking of pupils' work, to develop a consistent approach towards the marking of pupils' work, to simplify the pupils' self-assessment of their work, to develop purposeful opportunities for peer assessment, to provide challenge with effective questioning and to identify next steps, and to make teachers' workload more manageable. So that's where we wanted to aim towards really. Why the marking policy? So at the end of the summer term and last year, our head teacher had taken on a new role and our governing body failed to appoint a head at the time. So we had a new executive head. So we had a lot of change in leadership within the school and just uncertainty within staff, but it did allow us the opportunity to collaborate with another school, because during COVID, I think that was, as a school, we felt we'd gone away from it a bit really. So we wanted to try and get out there, see different practice, share good learning experiences and things like that. So it did provide that opportunity for us. So through book scrutiny task undertaken with the SLT, it was evident that it was an inconsistency in regards to the marking and the feedback provided to pupils. It didn't always take the learning further, and that needed to be addressed really. So we identified this in a FADE analysis, and then in talking with our school improvement partner, that opportunity was for me to undertake. So my first step then was to feedback from the book scrutiny to the staff in phase meetings, and we discussed the findings. There was an opportunity to just share ideas of where we thought we were at with marking work and providing feedback. In lots of cases, it was over marking, so workload was being increased and things, and just make sure it was really purposeful for that child. So it was evident that there were some great ideas and approaches, but it just lacked clarity and cohesion. So, as the children were moving up throughout the school, practices were possibly being changed, or there was different approaches, and we just wanted a consistent approach. So, in discussion with a deputy head at our executive head teachers at a school, we went through some of the documentation that the EAS had done with other bodies as well, looking at what was going wrong with work scrutiny, feedback, AFL strategies, and things like that. And for me, something that really stood out was trying to be specific and positive. I've just put some diagrams taken from a presentation that was shown to me. I just thought that one really stood out, just making sure that any feedback that was given to the child was specific and positive, and trying to shift in as a school in that direction really. So the journey began. I started collaborating with others. I was given the opportunity to work with the deputy head of another school, and I developed the marking policy for our school. It was supposed to be more focused and clear for all staff to follow. And then this was shared with the SLT. This was around January time. So I was given a time scale of responsibilities really. So I fed it back to SLT and discussed the changes and why certain decisions had been made really. And then that was delivered to staff in a staff inset at the end of January. There was many questions and discussions, debates and arguments, but really wanted to change our approach to marking the pupils' works and the feedback provided to them. So I just was able to refer back to our vision names at the start, just to make sure that all staff were on board and wanted that focus for the children. So it was agreed as a staff that for the next 2 weeks we just implementing the policy, just leading up to half term really, and then any feedback or criticism or queries, anything really, positive, negative, would be fed back to myself before the staff meeting leading up to half term. So I did have lots of feedback, but then we were able to come up with some resources and things that we adapted following on from the feedback. So there was a poster that was put in all classrooms using Show Me Shapes. Previously, we'd done lots of self-assessment tools where like ticks and happy faces or stars and a wish. There was lots of different approaches going on, but it was inconsistent throughout the school. So we just came up with 3 simple shapes that from all the way from nursery and reception all the way up to year 6. That was their approach, how they felt in their learning. In the younger years, they could just identify a shape on a sticker on their piece of work, and then in the older years, they would move forward and explain it in more detail. And maybe if they were a supportive square, what type of support they did need. Was it like through adult support, or was it through a resource? So we developed the policy. A simplified marking code was added toward to use within books. So teachers had, before we had a lot of codes, you know, so it was simplified. It was tried to make it a lot easier, and that was from feedback from staff really, to make it more purposeful and focused for the child, and so the child could understand it. And then we just moved through the journey really. So on the 7th February, I collected feedback from the members of the staff, and this was the opportunity to show how the implementation had gone. We took the time to look at sample pieces of work that had been marked following that new policy. I used a lot more of my examples because I didn't want other staff to feel that I've selected their piece, whether or not it was a good example or possibly an example that needed developing. So I put myself almost in a vulnerable position, but I think the staff respected that honesty because they could see that I was willing to show, like, even though I'm supposed to be leading it, I can get things wrong sometimes. So it was more about we need to move forward together and support each other, which possibly, you know, we hadn't had that culture before enough. So this was really crucial, really, because it enabled staff to feel a sense of ownership. There were, again, amendments to the policy, just to make sure that it was purposeful for all staff. You know, like I teach in year 6, and the way you mark and feedback to someone in reception in year 1 is totally different. So I'm not like a specialist in that idea. I needed that input from all staff, but we needed a starting base to move forward. So the marking policy was amended and implemented to be put into place following the February half term. So all teachers and staff had a clear expectation of what was going to happen, and then book scrutiny monitoring activity was scheduled for in the summer term to see its impact really. Here's some examples of some of the feedback. Like some staff, if they weren't in the class and the supply had marked it and things, they were getting frustrated or criticised if it wasn't up to the standard of their marking. So just ways to identify that really, just put into place to make sure it was consistent. You know, like if a child was away, they still needed to go back to their piece of work that had been marked and take on the feedback because it was still important, even though they might have missed some period of time. And just make sure that any next steps that were identified, children did have the opportunity to address, because if you ask them if you're providing the feedback to continue their learning, you can't just move on to the next session without giving them that opportunity. And I think that was quite important. Something else that did stand out, that, for example, in a maths lesson, we wanted next steps focused on the maths task and learning, and not necessarily on the handwriting and presentation, because that wasn't a maths skill. So it had to be purposeful for the learning intentions, whereas, you know, previously remarks and comments like that had been put into books. So the implementation throughout the rest of the spring term, staff followed the marking policy, but there were regular opportunities in phase meetings. We have phase meetings fortnightly, so separate to like staff meetings and things, where we can like look at samples of work and just discuss things as a progression step or key stage as it was really. And also, if any individual queries, they could come to me, and you know, time was found to work together really. But it was the opportunity for me, like when the lady said at the beginning in her presentation, it was the time. Like, it was hard for me to spend time with all members of staff, so working in phases and just collaborating together, provided it preempted any problems happening or just preempted conversations. And I think as a leader, given opportunities to do that helped other staff as well. So to monitor how it impacted in the summer term. Again, as a SLT, we took a book scrutiny, and for me, the focus was on marking. And again, feeding analysis was completed and further actions identified. I think as Vicky said in her last presentation, it's a job and finish type task. It's an ongoing thing that, you know, we've changed year groups now, so your expectations of marking in different year groups could be different, or change of staff. It's always an ongoing approach. So just having that opportunity to talk about it keeps it in the back of your mind, keeps it ticking over. It's not, oh, I've finished that, I can forget about it, but then it comes up again next year. If it keeps on going, it does help staff. So the journey continues. This September, we've got a new head teacher again. So, like, my feedback on my experience task and the implementation of marking really has built up a dialogue with the head teacher, and we both had it, like, not a book scrutiny, but just a look at books early on in September, just to see how different classes and year groups and staff had settled into the process really, and if the good work that had begun previous year had continued. And we were really happy, but there were still opportunities that needed to be developing. And in particular, we felt, even though there was a consistent approach, you know, like children were using the show me shapes, you know, more effectively, there was positive comments in books and things like that. Some of the questioning wasn't quite developed enough to take those learners on forward. So that was kind of added into my journey as this September really. So working with the head teacher, we put together a staff inset looking at the quality of questioning and how we can like fit that into our marking really, in regards to like thinking of workload, whether or not we do group marking and focus marking, and what's relevant for lower down the school compared to like older children. And we're starting to incorporate the use of like digital technologies into that as well. So that's been a learning curve for myself, but as a school, we are trying to move forward with it. So it is an ongoing journey or battle, but I feel we've much more collaborative approach and culture towards it really. And that's just some things from our last book look, which we did in September. You know, there's still some parts on there, like looking at marking, for example, you know, with supply teachers and things like that. So we're going to create exemplar marking samples that we'd put in like a pack for supply teachers. So if they know they, you know, in a maths task, what we'd expect from them, because, you know, like as senior leaders, I'm out of class on different courses and things quite a bit. So I need my I need to have confidence that the marking will be, even though I'm ultimately responsible for my class, I want confidence that it'll be carried out to the standard expected, really. And that's the end of my presentation. Any questions? I don't know how I can see you. Can you see me? Oh, have I got? No.
Yeah, we can see you.
I don't know where you've got. I can't see. Oh, right. Sorry, I've clicked back. I'm there.
Thank you very much, Gareth. Again, lots of hard work and, you know, really, really important work as well. So thank you very much for sharing your journey. Do we have any questions for Gareth?
Good. It was interesting because being last in the presentations, like I could pick up on challenges that you've all had, really. You know, like the time thing. That's, you know, I think Kelly, you said about the time at the beginning. I'm not sure if it was you, but it's so hard to make that time, you know, for individual teachers, and teacher assistants, and sometimes they do need that. But like using phase meetings and trying to get small groups together, you know, you can try to address it, and that's something we've tried to carry on this term so far, really. But that is hard.
Yeah, and that idea of looking at their work, so you're completely involving them in the process as well. If
Yeah.
they're bringing along their books, in the same way that Vicky empowered her staff, so too you're empowering your staff to look and learn and take responsibility for moving that learning within their books forward. So how have you developed then, Gareth, as a leader?
As a leader, to making sure that I'm organised, and that if, you know, like I was given quite specific deadlines from where we had like an executive head teacher, because they were on site all the time, they would be like, oh, in 2 weeks' time, you need to do this staff meeting, you need to be prepared for that. So I need to make sure that I was there. And, you know, like sometimes I couldn't always have that dialogue with them because they weren't always in the building type thing. They were always opportunities that I could get. So making sure I had the organisation for myself, really, that helped. And just making sure that trying to develop that collaboration, and like one or two of you have already mentioned, you can't do it all yourself. Even though it was my responsibility, like I was in the I went to another school and looked at their marking policy. As a whole staff, we'd gone and did like a learning walk. So we'd looked, like, browsed in people's books and things, just because, you know, the class teachers were showing us. So we were aware of different things, and already was like, oh, we like that, we like this, but oh, that won't work for us, or that won't work. So just through conversations and just listening to those around me helped me to initially narrow it down, but also having the respect of the other colleagues around me, that if it worked for me, it might not work for them. So, you know, like we did amend things, you know, it wasn't a job and finish. And, you know, like at the moment, we last term, we did focus a lot on self-assessment strategies. And like the plan was in the end of the summer term to look at peer assessment as well. But we felt as a school, the self-assessment wasn't there yet, you know, so rather than moving on and trying to push another strategy, we had to really focus upon that and make sure we come in September and that we were happy where we are, and now move forward into October half term, really. So it was a much more bit like the Clarity Canvas, trying to do a small action and then move forward before trying to go forward too quick.
Yeah, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Vicky, did you have a question?
Yeah, it's just I'm just curious, really, in terms of like curriculum for Wales and progression steps. And Gareth, where are you at in terms of, does this policy kind of align with that? Is you know, we're saying like it's a task and it's not a task and finish, is always evolving, isn't it?
Yeah.
How do your staff feel about that? Because I'll be brutally honest, this is where we're at. We're looking to amend our marketing and feedback policy. But we're just a bit, is there any need if we're looking at progression steps and how that's going to look, particular for our GCSE learners when we come to assessment, when we get the information for that. How do your staff feel that this may change, or has it changed, or is it incorporating that?
I think we're trying to do it with small, slight changes progressively. Like our progression step 1 are using a lot of digital technologies as focused observation tasks. So, where they're doing, they're observing a group of children or a small group of children. They recorded it on something like Seesaw, but they're also doing their questioning then. So they're engaging with the children then as a feedback thing, but it's immediate. So that's still like a marking approach really, but because it's there and it's evidenced on their Seesaw, in their books they put a little Seesaw sticker. So if someone looks at their book and it's like, oh, there's no red pen, no marking, you've just got to look at the link on the Seesaw, and then you've got this fantastic questioning of the teacher. And that's, as a school improvement partner or anybody who comes into the school, they look at that and they're thinking, wow, your question is really, really good and effective. And that's happening earlier, like in reception year 1, year 2. So now, I'm in year 6 at the moment, and for me, Welsh oracy is hard to evidence, hard to mark and things. So can I possibly do that type of approach using Seesaw and upload videos and get myself using those effective questions there and then? So it's purposeful for the child, because sometimes, especially if you've got a year 1 child, you can't write a comment in the book saying, oh, how do you da-da-da-da, because it's just not purposeful for them. They need the there and then. So we are evolving. And I think using the progression steps, even though there is differences, we're starting now to see it coming together as well. And just it is.
I suppose it's just having a policy that's flexible enough to cover all of that then, and that's what you've achieved with this. Well, that's really interesting.
Even though having change of leadership, head teachers and things, you've just tried to work with them as well, because they've obviously got new ideas coming in as well. So just being honest with them and where we are, they're going to go and look at our books and just, and officially as well, they will, won't they? And it's having that honesty that, oh, we think this, but what do you think? And those conversations are important.
Thank you, Gareth.
It's okay.
I was very curious, so thank you.
No, it's all right.
Well, thank you very much. I will stop the recording. Let me just,